Hi everyone, FIDE Master Dennis Monokroussos here for ChessLecture.com, and today I'm going to show you one of the coolest games you're ever going to see. So a few shows ago I showed you a game where I drew and I was just sacrificing things left and right. Not always soundly, but very entertainingly. So here's a game where white sacrifices every single one of his original pieces. Not the pawns necessarily, but all of his pieces, the full original set, he sacrifices. And I'm not sure if there are any other games where that's happened. So this makes it a pretty extraordinary game. So it was played back in 1993. White was Grigory Serper, who's now an American grandmaster. I forget where in the former Soviet Union he was from, but he was once upon a time a member of the Kasparov school as a youngster, and was definitely quite a talented young guy. Didn't quite reach, a top-level grandmaster status, but still a good, solid, or was for many years a good, solid GM on the American circuit. His opponent in this game is Iaannis Nikolaidis, and he was an IM at the time. He's now a GM as well. So this was played in St. Petersburg back in 1993, and buckle up for an entertaining game, for a bumpy ride, at least if you're a fan of Nikolaidis. So c4, g6, e4, bishop g7, d4, d6, and so through a slightly unusual move order, we reach a mainline King's Indian position, and now Serper plays knight g to e2. And this is kind of a flexible move in certain respects, so white avoids declaring his pawn structure, whether he's going to play f3, f4, do nothing with that pawn, exactly what is it that he's going to do. And he's waiting for black to declare himself. Is black going to play e5, c5, c6, what's his plan? So black plays kind of a flexible move with knight b to d7, but in a way that's not totally flexible because the knight might have gone to c6 in some cases. Also to a6. So probably the absolute main line, well, that might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but certainly a mainline approach goes castles, knight to g3, e5, d5, a5, and knight a6. This was chosen recently by none other than Timur Radjabov, who beat Magnus Carlsen in a classical tournament this year on the black side, so in Shamkir. So that game's in the PGN for your entertainment and amusement, and shows maybe a more contemporary way of handling this for black. So knight b to d7 is by no means a terrible move, though. Okay, white plays knight to g3, still waiting on black. Who can castle here? e5 is another sort of normal move. h5 is also a normal idea, which we're going to see a couple of moves later. So instead, Nikolaidis plays c6. Okay, bishop to e2, still waiting. Is black going to castle? What's he going to do? And Nikolaidis keeps waiting. He plays a6. And this is by no means an unknown concept in the King's Indian. This position is pretty unusual, but this idea is not so strange at all. So the idea is just to play b5 and expand on this flank. And probably sooner or later, e5 will be played. Okay, well, depending on what white does, maybe e5 will be played, maybe not. Depends on how, again, white handles this b5 thrust. So here Serper plays bishop to e3, and now h5. This might seem like a very, very strange move to if you've never seen it before against, for instance, lines like this in the modern Benoni and in the King's Indian, where white puts this knight on g3. So the idea is to play h4, just grab some space. This knight often comes to h5, and then black fights for the dark square, sometimes with e5, occasionally even bishop h6, and so on. So that's the plan here. Now, a recent game with this, played earlier this year in Dubai in the World Blitz and Rapid Championships, was between Bologan and Anton Yarrow. And in that game, white played the move a4, so a little prophylaxis against b5. Black could play a5 here. That's possible. In that game, he played e5. Bologan played d5. Takes, h4, knight f1, knight h5 as advertised, so looking already towards the f4 square, g3. And it seems that white was able to kind of maintain control and won, though not anytime soon, but eventually won. So that's a possible way in which this can go. In this game, Serper played f3, which is kind of a normal idea. And now though, I think Nikolaidis maybe goes slightly wrong over the next few moves. I would say he should play h4 straight away, kind of a common idea. He plays b5 instead, and this isn't so bad. Serper plays c5, takes, but now though I think black should definitely play h4, driving the knight to f1. Now, you might think that it's better to wait, and this is what Nikolaidis clearly thought. He played queen to c7, castles, and now h4. But the problem is that while h1 is a sillier looking square than f1, in fact, the knight comes into the game much more effectively via f2. Whereas if it's on f1, maybe it goes to d2, but there's not really anywhere for it to go from there, so maybe it goes to b3. It's not really clear how much it does there, etc. You get the point. So the knight on f1 is better than h1 if that's all you're evaluating. But if you're evaluating where the knight can subsequently travel, h1 seems to be the better square. So I think black would have been better served pushing the knight back before white castled. All right, so after knight h1, black continued in standard fashion with knight to h5. Here, white might have considered f4, just taking over the f4 square straight away, but he played queen to d2, also, of course, fighting for f4, but fighting for the square, but I think it was also useful to have the pawn actually on f4. Be that as it may, black played e5, which has a good idea behind it, but I think it would have been better executed with the move g5. Now, this looks a bit strange, but the point is that after bishop g5, black can grab the guy on c5, and frankly, he wouldn't mind, I think, wouldn't mind a bit if white took the h-pawn as well. Then black is going to have some serious compensation attacking on the king side. So he's going to have some nice darks control. Maybe bishop to e5 could be played here, taking aim at this. I mean, if white plays g3, this guy is sort of stranded. So this looks like a promising position, or a promising idea for black, at any rate. So instead of this, though, he played e5, which doesn't sacrifice anything, but it cuts off some lines. So the bishop on g7, it's no longer got the freewheeling diagonal, and can no longer go to e5. Of course, the queen on c7 is no longer hitting that. So pawn on e5 is kind of a block. What it is that's good is a support to a potential knight outpost on d4 or f4. So black has the idea of playing knight f8, knight e6, and then either putting a knight on f4 or on d4, or maybe ultimately both squares. So it's a very good strategic idea, and the question is whether he's going to have time for it.